sharing with you in this video how to stay calm under pressure. And this is really not going to be what you think, because most people, when they experience pressure, the pressure makes them crumble. They can't rise above the pressure, become greater than the pressure. The pressure makes them sort of attached to the situation, attached to the problem, and then they become the problem rather than being a witness to the problem and then having that sort of space to find solutions to the problem. They get entangled in the problem. And so in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you how not to do that, and then of course instead how to stay firm and centered and calm in who you are while you're experiencing this negative situation or some feeling of quote unquote pressure in your life. And then so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually do this is to understand that really I want you to remember that no matter what, things will quote unquote go wrong, especially when you're creating something. So we have this sort of unconscious expectation, I believe, that like things are going to go perfect when you have a plan. And it's like, I want you to notice, like, not from a pessimistic point of view, but sort of just like a realistic point of view. I want you to actually notice in your experience that when you set on a new intention, when you set on a new plan, it's almost like all the old stuff, anything that you used to be, has to rise above to the surface and kind of challenge you. And it's not really the truth, but it's almost like life is sort of asking you, like, are you ready to take this next step? And then usually what I find is that when you set on a new intention, this manifests as sort of things just going wrong, things not looking correct. Maybe somebody says something to you that makes you feel super angry, or maybe something happens that makes you feel like what you want is not going to happen. And then of course that situation happens, and the first thing your mind does is you say to yourself that this means that I can't stay calm under pressure and that I can't create what I want anymore. And of course it's not the truth. And of course in this video as well, I'm going to be sharing with you more techniques on how to focus on the solution, but I want you just to have a proper expectation of what is going to happen every single time when you create a new identity for yourself, which is of course some challenge is going to happen that makes it look like you can't be that thing that you decided upon. And so I want you to notice this, because really I believe that a majority of the things that fail in life, a majority of the thing where people kind of get overly upset or overly angry as a result of a challenge happening in their life, is simply because they had a false expectation. They had this expectation that one thing was going to happen, but then of course this other thing happened that they didn't expect, and then they got very upset and angry about that. But what if you had a proper expectation of this, truth that I'm telling you, which is that things are going to go wrong. Something's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like, it's never going to go perfectly according to plan. And then, one person might hear this and say like, okay, well, that's a victim mentality. Like, why would you think like that? Like, that's just a waste of my time. Another person will take what I'm saying and then they'll see an opportunity to see that like, okay, well, you know what? Like, if this is going to happen anyway, why not be prepared for it and then move through the lesson faster? And so that's really what this video is about, is an invitation for you to learn faster, to learn from your mistakes faster, to learn from the challenges faster. So when you start to see that things are going to happen no matter what, but the question is, how quickly can you move through the barriers? And can you have a positive attitude throughout them to be better prepared for them? And then so the second thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to stay calm under pressure, and it's not going to be what you think, is to understand that it's not really about quote unquote trying to stay calm, because that's not really what's going to work, but instead remaining connected to your center when chaos happens. That's really what it means to stay calm under pressure. So let me be more specific. It's not about trying to convince yourself to stay calm when there's clearly chaos happening or a negative situation happening or a problem quote unquote happening in your life. It's not about just like thinking positive thoughts when like clearly there's a negative situation happening, there's negative thoughts happening in your mind, there's many things going wrong in your experience. It's not just about slapping positive thoughts on top of that situation. Really, what I'm inviting here for you to understand as well is to see that it's about holding your center, staying spiritually connected to your center, to who you really are, while chaos happens. So this means negative situations, this means negative emotions, this means negative thoughts, this means physical pain in your body, this means any feeling of anxiety, fear, or worry, or resistance, or even better yet, a feeling of pure happiness and joy. Because really, if you want to stay calm under pressure, you also have to know how to be truly unreactive from a spiritual sense, not to react to your reactions, to hold the center to the reaction, even when positive things happen as well. Because a very positive situation, a very pleasurable situation, can also throw you off center. I want you to notice this as well. I want you to notice in your life that you getting overly attached to a positive situation can just as much make you not calm under pressure as much as a negative situation. So the key is not to attach to either. But that's not the point that I'm making here. The point that I'm making here is to understand that it's about holding that center through the positive or the negative. That's really what it's about. It's about understanding that when you're seeing a positive situation happen, that's your sign to come back to your center. You know what I mean? When you're experiencing a negative situation, something really bad, well, that's again your sign to go back to your center. And then so of course, if you do this on a moment-to-moment basis, even when there's no serious challenge happening and there's no problem happening and there's no issues happening, when that challenge does happen, you'll be prepared to, because you've been practicing to remain spiritually centered while these things are happening. So really it's about having a spiritual practice to remain spiritually centered while the pressure is happening in whatever context, whether it's in your work life, whether it's in your relationships of any kind, whatever the case might be. The key is to use life itself as a spiritual practice to remain connected to the present moment, and not just to the present moment, but the consciousness that sort of creates the present moment, where the present moment shines through, right? The present moment shines through this sort of space, which we're going to call consciousness. And of course, you want to stay connected to that while the chaos is happening. So what is creating the chaos to begin with? What comes prior to positivity or negativity? It is, of course, your true nature and the consciousness, and again, the sort of space in which everything is streamed through and beams through, right? And then so with this, awareness in mind, what we can begin to realize is that, of course, we can stay centered while these challenges are happening in our life. And then so the final thing that I want to share with you in this video, in terms of how to stay calm under pressure, and it's not going to be what you think, is this is a very powerful spiritual practice that you can apply immediately in your life. You can implement this right now in the present moment, even without pressure happening. But again, more so when pressure is happening, I want you to use pressure as a reason to refocus yourself spiritually. So that's what really pressure is for. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what pressure is for. Everything that makes you excited, the reason it makes you excited, whether you realize it or not, is because it's giving you a deeper connection to the present moment and the truth of who you are, how the thing that creates everything, that brings everything together, what makes everything the way that it is, what connects me and then this camera and then you, what brings all these things together, the same essence that creates all of it. To remain connected to that is to see that any form that pops up in reality can be used as, again, yet another reason to focus on the formless. So forms can be used as a reason to focus on the formless. And if you do this from a genuine space, what you'll find is that you really understand the true essence of how to stay calm under pressure, because you can't fake it. You know what I mean? You can't fake staying calm. If you're stuck in your mind and you're pretending to stay calm just by using affirmations and just by thinking about it, you're not directly connecting to the present moment and dropping your thoughts into reality, I personally believe. And then so what this is going to do is there's always going to be a little bit of angst in your energy, because on the one end, while you're feeling happy about something, what's going to be a part of that is, of course, the fear of losing it. Haven't you ever noticed that? where if you're overly happy about something, if you're overly excited about something, you're very, very, very happy about something, while that feeling of happiness might seem good, so to speak, if you look at it a little bit deeper, there's a fear of loss. There's a fear of loss there. And then so if you want to come to the middle ground of who you truly are, where you're not attached to having or not having or any sort of fear of loss whatsoever, the way that you do this, of course, is again using pressure to your advantage. Instead of seeing pressure as a reason to be a victim in your life, you can use pressure as yet another reason to remain even more connected to the present moment and remain even more connected to your true essence and who you truly are as you're creating who you want to be, of course, in the physical world, but you don't lose that essence while you're actually doing stuff.